Hello, writers. Today we're going to be thinking about how do we show and not tell about our stories. Now, yesterday you did a lot of work planning out possible story ideas. How could your story mountains go? Well, today I want you to choose what is your best story arc, and we're going to go with that. Today, as we learn, I want you to remember that writers want to create a scene and they need to create drama. Sometimes writers use a line of dialogue, making a character talk, or sometimes they describe a small action that's happening. They make the character move or react physically to what is going on in the scene. Remember when we talked about the billy goat's gruff? Let's go back to that scene and see how did the writer start to show drama? How did they start to create the scene? "That's the greenest grass I've ever seen in my life," said the third goat. "Can we go over to that hill and eat some, please?" "Yeah, we're hungry," said second goat. So first goat placed one hoof gingerly onto the little wooden bridge that would carry them over the rushing river to a delightful afternoon snack. The bridge felt good and sturdy. "Nothing's going to stop us. Follow me." And the first goat stepped out onto that bridge toward the grassy hillside. "No, no, no," boomed a voice. "Who dares to cross my bridge?" Suddenly, First Goat felt a hot breath of a troll on his muzzle. Notice how the author of this did a scene where they had the characters speaking first. And then they also describe the actions that they're doing. Remember how they said that the goats put their hooves on the wooden bridge gingerly? Well, now we're going to have the chance to try to do that with our own scenes. Remember earlier this year, we started to think of Luz's story. Lou stared at the clothes hanging in her closet until her eyes were blurry. Nothing looked good to her. She wanted to look cool, grown up, but all her clothes looked like little clothes, or else were too ratty to wear to a party. She bit her lip. "There's gotta be something I can wear." Well, now we need to do the same work with this story. I'm going to think about my story about Jonahs. And when I think about the story arc, I know that my first bullet is the scene where a little kitty is just wandering around Brooklyn, New York. So I think for this one, I'm going to try to be a little descriptive into what's going on in this scene. This is my first blurb for my first scene. Jonahs' story. The rain fell over Brooklyn, New York, making everything a soggy mess. Out of the trash area, a little black cat looked around for food. He sniffed a wrapper of a McDonald's hamburger, thinking that he wished there were still a bun or bit of meat and cheese to snack on. Just then, the little black cat heard a sound around the corner. As he peered around, he noticed a woman throwing out recyclables into the big blue trash can. Now, my scene isn't completely drafted out, but it is a little bit of a scene to get my brain going. Maybe you can try. Here's a bullet from Caleb's story. This guy named Spencer really wants to do great in school because he wants to go to the same college as his big brother, but his friends think he's a geek for reading. What could you do to start to bring this story to life? Maybe some of you are thinking something like this. Maybe you could know that writers use dialogue to make the character talk. Or maybe they describe a small action. Maybe you were thinking that we would start with a small action, since that's what I did for Jonahs' story. Maybe this little bullet from the story arc could turn into a scene that looks like this. Spencer peeked out from behind the science portable and looked both ways. Good, no one in sight. He sat back against the wall with the portable and pulled his football jersey out of his backpack. He opened the jersey, and there, hidden safe and sound, was a piece of heaven. Harry Potter. All right, writers. Today, you're going to start by transferring your story arc onto a story booklet or in your Google Docs. And you're going to use that as a way to support your storytelling. Then, you're going to try telling it so that each little page or each little section has a small moment story. Remember, we're not drafting the entire story, but with each scene, you want a small moment story. All right, writers, so you were just reminded about how you show, not tell, your story. Remember, you have to show your characters and bring them to life. And a couple ways that you do that is by using dialogue. Remember to use quotations when they're speaking to each other. And we also use descriptive language. What are they doing? What are their actions? What are their thoughts? Also, you want to be very descriptive when you talk about the setting. Where are they at? If I close my eyes as a reader, can I make that picture in my head? Now, you'll remember that last time we wrote our stories, we took our story mountains that had about 4 or 5 different scenes, and we took them over onto loose leaf paper. And you can remember that we did scene 1, scene 2, scene 3. Now, you can still do it that way if you wish, but if you're working on Google Docs, you might want to set up your document a little bit differently. Now, remember that typing is going to be a little bit smaller than a full page of writing, but you still want to do your best work. Why don't I show you how I set up my Google Docs, and that way you can do the same. All right, writers, this is how you can do this work on a Google Docs. I chose the story arc that I wanted to use to turn into my full draft. Now what you want to do is you want to separate the bullets. So maybe you might say something like this. Scene 1. Now we can take out the bullets and separate scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, scene 4, and scene 5. Remember, you don't want more than 4 or 5 scenes, otherwise your drafting will take too long. So now that I have my scenes, this is where I want to start my blurbs for each scene. Remember, each scene needs a small moment. Scene 1 was about a homeless cat wandering around Brooklyn, New York. And remember from our lesson, I wrote this scene. The rain fell over Brooklyn, New York, making everything a soggy mess, right? Now, I can go to scene 2. In scene 2, it's about a woman named Joanna finding him and taking him home, but she could not keep him. So, now I'll start to write this story. As Joanna looked at the little cat in her apartment, she knew that she couldn't keep him. But who would be able to take care of such a cute little kitty? Notice how I'm starting to draft out this small moment. Once I finish with this scene, I'm going to go on to scene 3, then scene 4, then scene 5. I'm really excited to see the work that you do with this today, writers. Get to work.